This is Tibet. In the late 19th century, Tibet was more than just a place. It was a myth, a land shrouded in mystery, forbidden to outsiders, and locked away behind the planet's most formidable mountains. For the British Empire, this secretive kingdom was a black hole in their grand strategy, a void that needed to be filled. And who were the ones chosen to infiltrate this hidden world? A group of intrepid Indian spies whose secret missions would forever alter the course of geopolitics. But why would a man risk his life for a land he had never seen? The answer lies in the power dynamics of the time. Tibet was a crucial piece in the global political chess match. As they called it, the Great Game. Let's break it down. In the 19th century, two of the world's most powerful empires were locked in a tense rivalry known as the Great Game. On one side, the British Empire had a firm grip on the Indian subcontinent. On the other side, the Russian Empire was steadily expanding southward, taking over Central Asia. Tibet was the last truly independent kingdom in Central Asia, a place so mysterious and isolated that it was more myth than reality to the outside world. In fact, until 1865, most Western maps showed Tibet as a vast, unexplored blank. That's because Tibet had deliberately shut its gates to foreigners, especially Westerners, as the Tibetans were fiercely protective of their religion and culture. But as the Great Game heated up, the British in India couldn't ignore Tibet anymore. It was the last piece of the puzzle in Central Asia. And so, the race for Lhasa began. Until 1904, when British troops forced their way into Lhasa, no Western power had ever set foot in the Forbidden City. Only a few missionaries and travelers had dared to enter Tibet, always in secret, and they never made it as far as Lhasa. The British, eager to uncover Tibet's secrets and gain a strategic advantage in the Great Game, quickly realized that their own officers couldn't penetrate this land. The harsh terrain, combined with Tibet's strict isolationist policies, meant that any attempt by a white man to enter would be met with failure, or worse. But there was a solution right in front of them: the Indians living along the border regions. The British realized that these Indians were uniquely suited for the job. They knew the land, the people, and the culture. They could move through these regions unnoticed, blending in with the local populations where no Englishman could ever hope to go. So, an idea emerged. Why not train these border Indians as surveyors and send them on secret missions into Tibet? Disguised as lamas, traders, and merchants, they could venture deep into the heart of Tibet, gathering the vital intelligence that the British so desperately needed. It was 1863 when the British began to recruit these pundits, a code name initially used because many of the first recruits were local school teachers. These pundits were trained in the art of surveying, taught to measure distances with precise steps, and equipped with covert tools hidden in everyday items. One of their most clever tools was the Tibetan prayer wheel, a seemingly innocent item that any pious Lama might carry. But these wheels were anything but ordinary. Fitted with a hidden compass and detachable drums, these prayer wheels were transformed into sophisticated survey instruments. Instead of containing Buddhist prayers, the long strips of paper inside were used to record calculations and observations as the pundits journeyed through the uncharted terrain. These pundits were trained to pace out distances with exact precision, using the prayer wheel to keep count. One rotation of the wheel every 100 paces allowed them to maintain the appearance of devout lamas, while secretly recording the day's measurements on a specially adapted rosary. They were well equipped with the tools of the trade: sextants to measure altitudes, chronometers to keep precise time, and thermometers to track temperature changes. In 1865, the first graduates of this daring British covert operation were ready to embark on their secret mission to map the forbidden land of Tibet. Among them was Nain Singh, one of the most skilled and determined surveyors trained in the program. His target was the isolated and mysterious capital of Tibet, Lhasa, Nain Singh became the first non-Tibetan to explore many legendary areas in Tibet, risking his life to gather information that no outsider had ever obtained. On foot, he traveled from Sikkim to Lhasa and across central Tibet, covering a staggering 1,580 miles. Each one counted meticulously with 3,160,000 paces. Disguised as a teacher of accounts, Singh spent time in Lhasa itself, gaining access to areas forbidden to foreigners. He quietly recorded his observations, noting the exact location of the Tibetan capital, something no European had done before. After completing his mission, Nain Singh returned to India, his invaluable data hidden within his tools, undetected by Tibetan authorities. Well, here is another spy explorer whose story must be told. Born in 1849 in Bengal, he was educated at the prestigious Presidency College in Calcutta and seemed destined for a career as a civil engineer. But destiny had other plans. After a bout of malaria, Das found himself in Darjeeling as headmaster of the Bhutia boarding school. But this school was not just about education. It was a covert training ground for intelligence operations in Tibet. His curiosity and intellect led him to learn Tibetan and study the writings of earlier explorers. In 1879, Das made his first real journey into Tibet, heading to Tashilhunpo Monastery. He spent 2 months there, studying manuscripts and teaching the Prime Minister Hindi and Sanskrit. The journey was grueling. Das battled not only the extreme cold and high altitudes, but also faced a terrifying outbreak of smallpox in Lhasa. Despite the risks, he pressed on. Along the way, his health deteriorated severely, and at one point, he was so sick with fever that he called his companions to his bedside and prepared his will, ready to face the worst. But his resolve saw him through. When he returned to India, he brought with him over 200 volumes of Tibetan manuscripts and detailed reports that offered a rare insight into Tibet's hidden world. No account of Tibetan exploration would be complete without mentioning Kinthup, a Lepcha man from Sikkim. So this is what happened. In the 1870s, the ultimate destination of the Tsangpo River was a mystery. Some believed it was the same river that flowed into the Bay of Bengal as the Brahmaputra. To test this theory, Captain Henry John Harmon sent Kinthup on a critical mission to release 500 specially marked logs into the Tsangpo at a prearranged time, while men stationed in India would watch for their arrival. But in May 1881, fate took a cruel turn. Kinthup was captured and sold into slavery. For nearly a year, he endured harsh conditions. Despite these setbacks, he remained committed to his mission. He painstakingly prepared the 500 logs and sent a letter to Captain Harmon in Lhasa, detailing his new schedule. Kinthup also undertook perilous treks, mapping the extent of the Tsangpo River and its surrounding regions. Through his efforts, he determined that the Tsangpo and the Brahmaputra were indeed the same river. After 15 months of servitude at a monastery, he successfully launched the logs into the river. Tragically, Captain Harmon had died in the interim, and Kinthup's letter went unread. It wasn't until 30 years later that his groundbreaking discovery was conclusively confirmed. There were many other spy explorers from India who risked everything to explore Tibet, but history has largely forgotten them. For nearly 3 decades, the British dispatched a small army of Pundits into the uncharted territories north of the Himalayas. They were not driven by fame or glory. The risks were immense. When Das's true identity was uncovered, the repercussions were severe. The Tibetan authorities publicly executed the Prime Minister of Tashilhunpo, the monk who had hosted him. The governor of Gyatso, another key figure, was imprisoned and wouldn't see freedom for 20 years. As we look back, we must ask ourselves, how many other silent heroes have shaped the world we live in, only to be forgotten? If you enjoyed this, hit subscribe and turn on notifications for more deep dives into stories that matter.